Education order. Ms. Santiago, can you take attendance?
Richard Waring.
Here.
Here.
Mayor Pedro Segarra.
Here.
Shelley Beth. Michael Brescia.
Here.
Robert Cole Jr. Matthew Coleman.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Santiago. Item 3.1, business agenda, approval of memorandum of understanding with the City of Hartford, that the Hartford Board of Education authorizes and directs the superintendent to execute the memorandum of agreement with the City of Hartford regarding OPEB and CIP funding. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The chair will make a motion to amend that resolution as follows: to delete the entire resolution and replace it with the following. The Board of Education agrees that the Board of Education authorizes that BOP OPEB funds in account 8307 in the amount $16,708,000 shall be distributed to the City of Hartford for use. $3.815 million for this fiscal year, $12.893 million for next fiscal year. Provided, however, that only general budget funds may be distributed to the city. Is there a second to my moved amendment?
Second.
The amendment's been moved and second. Is there debate on the amendment? Hearing none, the chair calls the question on the amendment. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, so now the amended resolution is before us. Dr. Narvaez, do you want to?
Yes, just very briefly. You know, this was the at the essence of the agreement that the mayor and I have proposed for your consideration. The other components of that are that $19.3 million will be put into a trust for the Board of Education. And in addition, we have some agreements, again, working with the City Council and we'll deal with some of that in some subsequent resolutions here to make us whole, to reallocate some CIP funds to cover leases that we pay for 3 of our high schools and for some minor building renovations. And in addition, the mayor and I have also talked about not seeking in payment for in-kind services and some shared services that we get from the city this year, and then in the following 3 years, again, to make up for the $17 million that the city is using for its budget this year. So that's the essence. Those are the main components of the agreement, and then your approval of this then authorizes the city to use the $16.7 million in its budget for this year and for next year.
Any questions for the superintendent first? No questions, Mr. Mayor Segarra?
Yeah, that is consistent with our conversations, but I think that there's a component of this, which is the in-kind, and in a spirit of understanding that the dollars were initially budgeted for school budget purposes and were within the school budget at some point, that we don't want to deprive the Board of Ed of future ability to recoup some of those dollars for much needed purposes. So I've not budgeted for this year any expectation. This is the current year that we're operating, any expectation of in-kind reimbursements. And I've not, in the budget that was approved by council, built in any expectation of in-kind reimbursements. So the objective is to take approximately $6 million, I believe, or about $6 million, right, and be able to, through offsets, or rather not seeking those contributions, be able to restore those funds prospectively.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on this item? Hearing nothing, the chair calls the question on the amended resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. Item 3.2, approval of budget allocation changes for 2014-15 Finance and Audit Committee. In accordance with Board of Education Policy 3140, transfer funds between categories, the attached transfer requires Board of Education approval. The recommended action is that the Hartford Board of Education approves the transfer of funds between categories as listed. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez.
Yes, just very briefly, this is as a result of the action you just took. So last year when you approved the the budget, you approved the use of $2.7 million in the OPEB account to pay for those purposes, to pay for fringe benefits. And because you've authorized the city to use $17 million from that account, it created a budget gap for us this year. And so this authorizes us to take the city, the money from the city to recover the $2.7 million that you had approved in the budget last year.
And if I might just amplify that with a question, that's because the city will be capitalizing certain leases in this fiscal year?
Yes, exactly.
And so we'll have extra money in the lease account or in that lease line item that can be transferred to cover the OPEB account?
Yes, thank you for pointing out specifically what that will come from. We will transfer from the money budgeted for the leases to go to the OPEB account.
Okay. Anything else on this? Mr. Mayor? Members, hearing nothing, the chair calls the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? The motion carries. Before we move on to number 3, I want to thank the superintendent and Ms. Altieri for all their hard work negotiating on this, and also Jose Sanchez, who's the budget director for the city. Jose is frequently our foil, but in this, he really worked very hard to help us get to yes. And he did a great job, as did our own people, but they were the ones that really did the hard work of lining up numbers that worked for everybody and made a deal that I think, well, maybe no one was 100% happy with, everyone could live with, which is the essence of a good compromise.
I'll ditto those remarks. I think that our respective staff did a great job in terms of identifying categories in which we can mitigate this gap, and I want to thank the superintendent for having very frank, clear, honest, and productive conversations with me that led to being able to resolve this in a way that, although not, there's no substitute for getting more support from our state and other places without having to increase taxes and create a burden to our residents, but I think this is as good as it could have gotten. And my pledge to this board, as always, is to continue to work to be creative in terms of bringing more resources so that we can fulfill our responsibilities to our students.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Stallings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a few comments. I learned through this budget process that I don't pretty much like anything.
Well, we haven't got to the budget process yet. That's the next 2 agenda.
No, I meant just leading up to this moment. Very difficult, hard to decide how you're going to make cuts and how you're going to make changes. Very difficult position. I did not feel that it was inclusive, but it was a good process nonetheless. So I'm proud of that. I want to thank the mayor for being a leader in this situation, and I also want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for taking a chance, taking a risk, sticking up for children and forcing conversations. I appreciate that, because we should have more conversations about the future of the school, how we use our funds, and how we work together with the city. So I thank you for that. And like I said, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything you've done. Superintendent, this is your first process, and you survived it. I commend you, because it was kind of rough for me. So thank everybody. I just want to thank the staff. I want to thank Jose. I never met him, but thank Jose. Christina worked very hard on this as well. Chief of staff and everyone else. And I just want to say thank you to everyone.
All right. With that, item 3, resolution, revision and adoption of the 2015-2016 general budget in the amount of $284,008,187, Finance and Audit Committee. The Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-222, requires that the appropriations for the general operating funds for the school district be approved by the Board of Education. The recommended action is that the Hartford Board of Education adopts the FY 15-16 general budget in the amount of $284,008,187, effective July 1st, 2015. Is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez?
Yes, thank you. This is, it has been a difficult budget season, as Mr. Stallings pointed out, difficult, we know, for the school system and for the city. This is the perfect storm budget, as I narrated for you before. Flat funds, you know, for our general funds for 8 years. Again, we're very respectful of the difficult position the city is in and haven't asked for an increase above the MBR in 8 years. We saw this year a decrease in our special funds by $11 million, and over the same period of time, we've added schools and programs. Nonetheless, I feel that I'm presenting a solid budget to you for your adoption, and even though it was difficult, we were able to do 3 things in this budget. First, close a $24 million gap, the $11 million in less revenue in special funds, the $13 million in increase in costs. We were able to mitigate that. We still are able to start to refocus our priorities and begin to invest in the new strategies that we want to implement to take our school system to the next level. And last, you know, we'll have to phase in those approaches. We're able to start to invest in our new strategies, but it's going to take us several years to fully fund what we think will make the most difference for kids. So, you know, I present to you, you know, even though it was a difficult budget, I think a really solid budget for your approval and adoption.
Dr. Nervous, thank you. This, if I might just ask a couple of questions, this budget will reflect the changes that were needed to accommodate what we've agreed upon with the city?
Yes, exactly. Again, with the city's use of the $17 million, the transfer that you just approved, we had planned to use $4.5 million of that in this year's budget. So to make up for that, we've done 2 things. Again, we've asked the council to capitalize several of our leases, so that's $2.6 million. They've also are working toward increasing our minor renovation budget. In addition, we have learned that our responsibility to the pension fund has been reduced by $1.5 million for next year. So with those combination of things, we were able to make some reallocations in order to close that $4.5 million gap. So those are the revisions from the budget that I originally presented to you several weeks ago.
All right. Anything else on this? Mr. Mayor, members, hearing nothing. Chair calls question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Item 4, resolution. Revision and adoption of the 2015-2016 recommended special funds budget in the amount of $145,342,440. Finance Audit Committee. The Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-222, requires that the appropriations for general operating funds be approved by the Board of Education. The Hartford Board of Education, the recommended action is the Hartford Board of Education hereby adopts the FY 15-16 special funds budget in the amount of $145,342,440,000 effective July 1, 2015. Is there a motion on that? It's been moved. Second. Is there a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. Dr. Narvaez?
There isn't really much to say to this. It's really just part 2 of what I just described to you. You know, this is the second part. We get $145 million from special funds to make up our total of $429 million budget. And so this is just putting the 2 pieces together of our general funds and then our special funds.
All right. Is there anything on this? Hearing nothing, the chair calls the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any against? The motion carries. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any against? Adjourned.
That was quick, man.
At Hartford Public Schools, we care about one thing above all: the future of our kids. That's why we're dedicated to providing all students with the knowledge and skills needed in the new global culture. Hartford Public Schools is thriving. More student success stories, more world-class facilities, more university and corporate partnerships, more amazing talent coming and staying in Hartford. This is how education is supposed to work. Welcome to Hartford Public Schools, where the future is present.